Walter Hayes stood on the front porch of his new suburban Ohio home, a modest two-bedroom ranch he'd bought with his 401k savings after selling his old apartment in Columbus. At 70, after 45 years as a history teacher and 3 years grieving his wife, Margaret, he'd taken a bold step. The $22,000 down payment had nearly emptied his savings, leaving him with $1,800 in the bank until his next pension check, but the house was his, a haven for quiet evenings, tending a vegetable garden, and volunteering at the Maple Grove Historical Society. The November air carried the scent of wood smoke and damp leaves, and Walter's weathered hands gripped a mug of black coffee as the sunrise painted the cul-de-sac gold. For the first time since Margaret's death, he felt alive. Inside, the house was a work in progress: scuffed oak floors, a second-hand recliner, a dining table from a thrift store. His fridge held essentials: eggs, milk, bread, carrots, a block of cheddar, and his pantry had rice, beans, and pasta, enough for his frugal meals. He'd planned to spend today planting tomato seedlings and signing up to lead history tours at the society. The thought warmed him, imagining sharing stories of Ohio's past with schoolkids. His phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, breaking the silence. His son, Daniel, 43, a struggling realtor from Dayton, flashed on the screen. Walter's chest tightened, hoping for a kind word about the new house, though Daniel had dismissed the purchase. "Dad, why blow your money on that dump?" he'd said. "Stay in your apartment near us. It's easier." Easier, Walter knew, meant available to fix Daniel's problems or host his wife's family for holidays. "Hey, son," Walter answered, his voice steady despite a flicker of dread. "Dad, heads up," Daniel said, no warmth, just urgency. "We're coming for Thanksgiving. Me, Sarah, the kids, her parents, and some cousins. About 18 of us. Be there in 2 hours. Get food and beds ready. Oh, and Sarah's brother Tom needs low-sodium stuff for his heart. We're staying through Black Friday, maybe longer. See you." He hung up. Walter's mug trembled, coffee sloshing onto his hand. 18 people? His pulse quickened, a cold knot forming in his gut. His 1,100 square foot house had 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, 6 plates, and a fridge stocked for 1. 2 weeks, maybe more? With what money? He'd spent his savings on the house, the deed signed last month. The freedom he'd felt moments ago vanished like smoke. He shuffled to the kitchen, opening the fridge as if it might hold answers. 10 eggs, a half-gallon of milk, 2 tomatoes, a cucumber, and the cheddar. The pantry had a bag of rice, 3 cans of beans, a box of pasta, and some spices. His wallet held $70 in cash, his bank account $1,800. Feeding 18 people for weeks would cost hundreds, maybe thousands. Beds? He had his bed, a recliner, and a few blankets. Were they sleeping on the floor? Worse than the logistics was the truth: Daniel hadn't asked. He demanded, as if Walter's home, his time, his money were theirs to claim. Walter sank into the recliner, memories flooding back. Daniel showing up at his old apartment with Sarah's family, eating his groceries, leaving beer cans everywhere. After Margaret's funeral, Daniel had taken her antique clock, saying, "Dad, you don't need this. It's just clutter." Walter, drowning in grief, had let him. He'd always let him, always said yes to keep the peace. Gravel crunched outside. Walter peered through the window. 3 minivans and an SUV rolled into his driveway, doors slamming, voices loud and carefree. Daniel, Sarah, their kids, Liam, 11, and Sophie, 8, Sarah's parents, her brother Tom, his wife, and a gaggle of cousins spilled out. Suitcases, coolers, and shopping bags cluttered the lawn. They looked like they were checking into a bed and breakfast, not visiting a widower's new home. "Dad!" Daniel shouted, hauling a duffel bag. "Help with the bags." Walter stepped onto the porch, gripping the railing. "Daniel, you didn't say 18 people were coming. I don't have food or space." "Relax, Dad," Daniel cut in, brushing past. "It's Thanksgiving. You love hosting. This place is perfect for a family holiday." Sarah, a petite woman in her 40s, grinned. "Nice house, Walter. Plenty of room, right? The kids are dying to play in the backyard." Tom, clutching a water bottle, chimed in. Walter, you got low-sodium butter? My heart condition, you know. And where's the Wi-Fi? I need to check my stocks. Walter's jaw tightened. Wi-Fi. He hadn't set it up. Low-sodium butter? He barely had regular butter. The kids were already tearing through his backyard, kicking up his seedling beds. Sarah's mother, Diane, complained about the drafty house. No central air, she said, wrapping her scarf tighter. I don't have food for 18, Walter said, his voice shaking. Or beds. This is a small house. Sarah rolled her eyes. Dad, don't be dramatic. You always figure it out. Just go to the store. Walter's stomach twisted, that old hollow ache he'd felt every time Daniel treated him like a servant. He remembered Daniel borrowing $1,500 for a car repair, never repaid, or Sarah using his apartment for her book club, leaving wine stains on his carpet. He'd always been the dependable dad, the one who fixed everything. But this was his house, his refuge, his last chance at peace. I'll see what I can do, he said, grabbing his wallet and keys. He drove to Maple Grove's Kroger, hands trembling on the wheel. The store was a pre-Thanksgiving frenzy, carts piled with turkeys and stuffing mix. Walter calculated desperately: rice, beans, pasta, canned sauce, potatoes, onions, cheap, stretchable food. No meat, no low-sodium specialties. The total was $260, nearly half his cash and a chunk of his account. He had $1,540 left. Back home, chaos reigned. Muddy footprints smeared his floors. Daniel was sprawled in the recliner, scrolling on his phone. Tom demanded hot water for tea. Sarah had claimed Walter's bedroom, saying, "We need it, Walter. The kids can't sleep on the floor." Walter cooked in a daze, boiling pasta and chopping onions, tears stinging his eyes, not from the onions, but from rage and helplessness. He served the meal on his 6 plates, using bowls and Tupperware lids for the rest. The family grumbled. No turkey? Tom said, poking his pasta. I thought you'd do a proper Thanksgiving dinner. It's what I had, Walter said quietly. Diane laughed. Walter, you've got this big house now. You must have some savings stashed. You can do better. Savings. They had no idea. He'd poured everything into this house, his one act of defiance after a life of sacrifice. But they didn't care. They ate, criticized, and left dishes in the sink, assuming he'd clean up. That night, Walter slept in the recliner, his back aching, while snores echoed from his bedroom and the living room, where sleeping bags and air mattresses cluttered the floor. He stared at the ceiling, the hum of Maple Grove's streetlights filtering through the blinds. He thought of Margaret, who'd warned him, Walt, you give too much. They'll drain you dry. He hadn't listened. Now, at 70, he felt it, the slow leaching of his spirit, his money, his dreams. The next morning, he woke at 5 a.m., joints creaking. The house was a wreck, empty chip bags, juice spills, towels tossed on the porch. Daniel was rummaging through the fridge. No coffee, he asked, annoyed. The kids need cereal. You got any? I don't have cereal, Walter said, his voice tight. I have eggs. Eggs for 18? Daniel laughed. Better hit the store. Grab some beer for the game and charcoal for a barbecue. Tom's wife, Karen, appeared, thrusting a pile of kids' clothes at him. Walter, can you wash these? The twins had a spill. And we need diapers. I forgot to pack enough. Walter's hands shook as he took the clothes. He didn't have a washer, only the laundromat in town. Diapers, beer, charcoal, more money he didn't have. The kids ran in, demanding breakfast, while Sarah shouted, Walter, is coffee ready? Daniel's useless without it. Something snapped inside Walter, not loud or dramatic, but quiet, like a match-catching flame. He'd spent his life saying yes to Margaret's medical bills, Daniel's demands, Sarah's family's entitlement. But this was his home, his sanctuary. He wouldn't let them steal it. I'm going to town, he said, his voice steady. They cheered, assuming he was fetching their groceries. But Walter had other plans. He drove to Maple Grove's Main Street, past the Kroger, and parked outside the Oakwood Diner. Inside, he ordered a coffee black, no frills, and sat by the window, his thoughts racing. He needed a plan, not just to survive this invasion but to reclaim his life. "You okay, sir?" the waiter, Mike, a man in his 50s with a grizzled beard, asked. "You look like you've got a storm brewing." Walter hesitated, then spilled the story: the house, the uninvited family, the demands. Mike nodded, his eyes sharp. "Sounds like my dad's story. His kids treated him like a bank until he got therapy and set limits. You should talk to someone, maybe a lawyer, too." Therapy. Walter had been seeing Dr. Nguyen, a counselor, for grief since Margaret's death. The idea of boundaries wasn't new, but applying it to his family felt like uncharted territory. Mike's mention of a lawyer sparked an idea. Walter recalled a sign for a law office near the Historical Society. He finished his coffee and walked to Reynolds and Partners, attorneys at law. The office was small, with wood-paneled walls and a faint cigar scent. He met Karen Reynolds, a no-nonsense lawyer in her 50s, who listened intently. "Mr. Hayes," she said, "this is financial and emotional exploitation, family or not. You own this property outright. They can't treat it like a free hotel. What can I do?" Walter asked, his voice low but hopeful. "You can set legal terms," Karen said. "Draft a short-term rental agreement, charge for lodging and services, or evict them if they refuse. Ohio law protects homeowners. They have no claim." Karen helped draft a contract: $100 per night for the bedroom, $50 for the living room floor, $30 per person per day for meals and utilities. It felt cold, charging family, but fair. Walter left with the papers and a spark of resolve. His next stop was the bank. The manager, a young woman named Lisa, reviewed his account with a frown. "You've spent $580 in 3 days, Mr. Hayes. That's not sustainable on your pension. Everything okay?" Walter explained, and Lisa nodded. "I've seen this with seniors, family draining their accounts. We can set a spending limit or require approval for large withdrawals. Talk to your lawyer about asset protection." Back home, the chaos had worsened. Kids had uprooted his tomato seedlings, shouting about a castle. Daniel was planning a Black Friday shopping spree, saying, "Dad, you're covering the gas, right? It's for the kids." Sarah handed him a list: diapers, low-sodium butter, beer, steaks, charcoal, pie ingredients. "We need this for Thanksgiving," she said. "Hurry, Dad." Walter set his $50 grocery bags, rice, beans, pasta, on the counter. "This is what I got," he said calmly. Sarah blinked. "Where's the rest? The steaks? The pie stuff?" "I didn't buy them," Walter said. "I can't afford it." The room went quiet. Tom laughed nervously. "What do you mean? You bought this house. You've got money." Walter pulled out his bank statement, showing the $1,220 balance. "I spent $580 feeding you for 3 days. This is all I have left." They stared, disbelieving. Daniel cleared his throat. "Come on, Dad, you're exaggerating. You can't expect us to eat beans for Thanksgiving." "Then contribute," Walter said, his voice firm. He slid Karen's contract across the table. "This is a rental agreement. If you stay, it's $100 per night for the bedroom, $50 for the floor, $30 per person for meals and utilities. Total for 2 weeks, $6,480. Silence. Sarah's face reddened. "You're charging us? Your own family?" "I'm giving you options," Walter said. "Pay for what you're using, or find a hotel." Daniel slammed his hand on the table. "This is ridiculous. Mom would be ashamed, treating us like this." Walter's heart stung, but Dr. Nguyen's words echoed, "Your value isn't in their demands." "Margaret worked so I'd have security," he said, "not so you could use me as a free caterer." You're in my home, uninvited. Karen started crying, clutching her twins. You're kicking us out? Where will we go? I'm not kicking you out, Walter said. I'm asking you to respect my limits. Motels are on Route 40. The argument erupted, Sarah calling him selfish, Daniel accusing him of greed, Diane muttering about ungrateful old men. The kids hovered, Liam whispering, "Why's Grandpa mad?" Walter's heart ached for them, but he stood firm. A knock interrupted. Mike from the diner stood at the door, holding a tray of cornbread. "Heard you had a crowd," he said, stepping inside. His eyes scanned the mess, dirty dishes, trampled garden. "Big group. Hope they're pitching in for groceries." The family froze, embarrassed. Mike's presence shifted the air. "They're not?" he asked, eyebrow raised. "My goodness, when my kids visit, they bring food. Common courtesy, right?" Sarah muttered, "It's a family visit." "Family takes care of family," Mike said sharply. "Walter's on a fixed income. You can't expect him to fund your holiday." Walter seized the moment. "I love having you here, but I can't afford this. Sign the agreement and contribute, or I'll help you find a motel." The family huddled, whispering. Daniel tried one last tactic. "Dad, think of the kids. You want them to remember you as the grandpa who threw them out?" Walter looked at Liam and Sophie, their faces uncertain. "I want them to remember a grandpa who taught them respect," he said. "You're their parents. Take care of them." By evening, a decision. Daniel, Sarah, and their kids would stay, signing for $1,800 for the week, bedroom and meals. The others packed up, grumbling about finding a real Thanksgiving. As their minivans left, Walter felt relief flood through him. The next week changed. Daniel and Sarah cooked, cleaned, even replanted his tomato seedlings with the kids. Sophie apologized shyly, saying, "I didn't know we were making you sad, Grandpa." Walter hugged her, tears in his eyes. At Maple Grove's Thanksgiving festival, Walter shared his story with the Historical Society, who cheered his courage. Mike introduced him to retirees wanting a community space. By spring, Walter had turned his garage into Maple Grove History Haven, a workshop for seniors to share local stories and teach kids. His days brimmed with laughter, history, and new friends. Daniel called occasionally, asking for favors, but Walter learned to say, "Sorry, son, I can't." Daniel hung up angry at first, then sighed and moved on. Walter didn't mind. He'd found something better than obligation, dignity, purpose, and a garden that grew as strong as his spirit. As he led a history tour one evening, Mike stopped by with coffee. "You did good, Walt," he said. "You showed em who's boss." Walter smiled, the scent of tomatoes drifting from his garden. "I showed myself," he said. And for the first time in years, he felt gloriously, unapologetically free. The lesson of the suburban showdown is that self-respect and firm boundaries are vital, even with family. Walter, a 70-year-old widower, reclaims his dignity by confronting his exploitative family's demands with a legal contract, transforming his Ohio home from a free hotel into a sanctuary. With community support, he turns his garage into a history workshop, proving it's never too late to prioritize oneself and find purpose, inspiring USA/UK readers to value mutual respect over one-sided family obligations. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, it really helps. Watch the full video for more details.